There's something strange about the way secrets work. If something is truly secret, how do we even know about it? How can we discuss things that by design were never meant to be spoken about? The answer is simple. We are allowed to talk about certain things, but only in a controlled way. We can acknowledge events, expose patterns, even speculate about the methods used, but only within predefined limits. It's almost as if we're doing a favor for the people behind these programs by keeping the discussion confined to certain aspects. That's how secrets can be hidden in plain sight. It's how information leaks, but still remains controlled. The real trick is understanding the rules. What can be said, what can't, and where the invisible line is drawn. If you pay close enough attention, you'll see this pattern everywhere. Major secrets are sometimes revealed, but framed in ways that keep the most damning truths buried. As we explore Project Monarch, keep this in mind. We are allowed to talk about this, but only in a way that keeps the full truth just out of reach. The question is, who decides where that line is drawn? And why are we only given part of the story? Welcome to the Nightmare Factory. This isn't your grandma's conspiracy theory. It's a dive into the shadow world where Hollywood glitz conceals trauma, where pop culture icons are puppets, and where butterflies are something else entirely. Tonight I'm gonna try to pull back the velvet curtain on Project Monarch, the alleged mind control program that shaped modern entertainment, and probably some of the things you did today. Post-World War II America, in its infinite wisdom, said, hey, let's grab all those Nazi scientists before the Soviets do. That was Operation Paperclip. And that's how the infamous Dr. Joseph Mengele made his way to America. The so-called angel of death from Auschwitz didn't just experiment on twins. He was obsessed with the human psyche. He conducted brutal and inhumane experiments, allegedly developing techniques designed to induce trauma so severe that it would fragment the mind into multiple personalities, an essential component in later mind control research. This is where history takes an interesting turn. Mengele's experiments didn't die with Nazi Germany. If the accounts were to be believed, his methods became the foundation of his secretive trauma-based mind control program, one that would later evolve into MKUltra, and eventually, Project Monarch. When Mengele was smuggled out of Europe, he didn't retire. His work allegedly continued. Survivors of the Monarch program claim his techniques were further refined in secret CIA facilities, away from prying eyes. The premise was simple but terrifying. Subject young minds to extreme, repeated trauma until they break, bring them down, and then rebuild them however you want. Children, kidnapped or bred for these experiments, were subjected to horrific torture, electroshock, deprivation, and ritual abuse, all aimed at breaking their minds into programmable fragments. Once a subject's mind was sufficiently fractured, each new personality, or alter, could be conditioned and controlled independently, activated with trigger words, phrases, or symbols. Essentially, these victims became human machines, ready to be used and activated at will. But let's make one thing clear. These methods weren't developed for science fiction, nor were they theoretical. They were tested, refined, and according to survivors, put into action. Mengele's research didn't die in Nazi concentration camps. It may have formed the building blocks of what would later be refined into MKUltra, and ultimately into Project Monarch itself. MKUltra, the CIA's top-secret mind-bending extravaganza. If you think the government would never conduct human experiments without consent, think again. From the 1950s to the late 1960s, the CIA ran one of the most disturbing psychological experiments in history. A program designed to control minds, erase memories, and reprogram individuals like human tape recorders. The program used unwitting civilians, military personnel, and even children as guinea pigs. But this wasn't just about interrogation, it was about complete domination of the human mind. The goal? Erase a person's identity, rebuild them from the ground up, control them like a puppet. The idea wasn't just to break someone, it was to remake them into something useful to the intelligence community. Operatives who wouldn't question orders, assets who didn't remember their missions, and in some cases, assassins who didn't even know that they had been programmed to kill. According to officially declassified MKUltra documents, the program used a combination of techniques to manipulate the brain. LSD and other hallucinogens were used to break down inhibitions, create paranoia, or completely erase memory. Sensory deprivation and isolation were used by locking people in dark, soundproof rooms for days, even weeks, until subjects lost their grip on reality. Extreme physical and psychological torture in the form of sleep deprivation, forced drug ingestion, and even other unspeakable kinds of trauma were used to shatter the psyche. Electroshock therapy applied at levels intended not just to induce seizures, but to erase core memories and rewire the brain entirely were applied on a regular basis. LSD was just the gateway drug for MKUltra. The real horror began when they realized trauma itself was the ultimate tool for mind control. Victims of the program reported being subjected to prolonged drug-induced states, sleep deprivation so extreme that hallucinations set in, and psychological torture designed to force them to disassociate from reality. Children were reportedly raised in controlled environments, conditioned from birth to obey specific commands. Through electroshock therapy and carefully crafted trauma, they were turned into blank slates, ready to be programmed with new identities. Dissociation wasn't a side effect. It was the point. If you could split a person's mind into fragments, you could program each piece separately. These programmed personas, often called alters, could be used for different functions: espionage, adult industry work, assassination, or even entertainment. They wouldn't even remember what they did. Their front personality, the part of them that lived a normal life, would remain completely unaware of what their other selves had done. By the time the public got wind of MKUltra in the 1970s, the government scrambled to control the damage. The Rockefeller Commission exposed some of the program's more benign aspects: LSD tests, weird hypnosis experiments. But the real horrors, those files were destroyed. And that raises the ultimate question: did MKUltra really end? Or did it just go deeper underground? MKUltra was just the beginning. Officially, the project was shut down in the 1970s. But let's be real. Something this powerful, something this effective, doesn't just disappear. It evolves. Welcome to Project Monarch, a program allegedly built on the foundations of MKUltra, but taken to an even darker place. Unlike MKUltra, which had its methods exposed in declassified documents, Monarch has never been officially acknowledged. Yet survivors, whistleblowers, and patterns hidden in plain sight suggest it exists. What sets Monarch apart? It's focused on creating programmable humans from early childhood, using trauma-based mind control to fracture the psyche into separate, controllable alters. The goal wasn't just to manipulate thoughts, but to completely reprogram individuals, splitting their minds into multiple personalities, each controlled by a handler and activated on command. Monarch programming is reportedly categorized into different levels, each corresponding to brainwave states and specific functions. Alpha programming is the general base control level. This creates highly obedient subjects with photographic memory and heightened cognitive skills. Beta programming, or kitten programming, is used primarily for physical exploitation. This type of programming strips away inhibitions and moral convictions, creating slaves for high-profile individuals in politics, entertainment, and other elite circles. Delta programming is designed for assassins and covert operatives, eliminating fear, increasing aggression, and making them resistant to pain. These individuals follow commands without hesitation and have built-in self-destruct programming. Theta programming. This level apparently evolves psychic abilities, remote viewing, and telepathic communication. Some even claim it uses technological implants to enhance these effects. Each alter personality is programmed with specific functions, allowing a single individual to serve multiple roles without their conscious awareness. Monarch programming relies on one key element: trauma. The more extreme, the better. The goal is to create such unbearable pain and fear that the mind splits, forming dissociative identities that can be programmed separately. Survivors report experiencing electroshock therapy at levels meant to erase memories and break their mind into fragments. Sensory deprivation and forced isolation for days or weeks at a time. Drugs and hallucinogens to disorient and warp perceptions of reality. Near-death experiences, including staged drownings and asphyxiation, physical and ritual abuse used to instill complete obedience and submission, sleep deprivation and starvation used to break down cognitive defenses, mirror and maze environments, creating psychological disorientation and reinforcing multiple personalities. The result? A fractured mind. One that is highly suggestible, easy to control, and compartmentalized to prevent awareness of what's really happening. Monarch programming doesn't just rely on direct commands. It embeds triggers deep into the subconscious, using words, symbols, colors, or even hand gestures to activate programmed behaviors. Some common triggers reported by survivors include butterflies, symbolizing the transformation from an unaware victim into a controlled monarch slave. Mirrors and shattered glass, representing the fractured mind, each piece a separate programmed identity. Labyrinths and spirals, used to induce dissociation and reinforce confusion. Eyes and all-seeing symbols, representing surveillance, control, and ever-present watchers. The weirdest one, Disney fairy tales and movies, which have been used in programming scripts to condition victims from an early age. These symbols aren't just artistic choices in pop culture. They're believed to be coded messages and triggers for those who have been programmed. The media isn't just entertainment. It's a reinforcement tool designed to keep monarch victims under control. If this all sounds too insane to be real, consider this. Many of the methods described align with what's been officially documented in MKUltra. The only difference? Monarch programming allegedly perfected the process, making it more widespread, more insidious, and more deeply embedded in our culture than we could ever imagine. And I guess that brings us to the next level of the rabbit hole: Hollywood. Monarch programming isn't just some dark secret locked away in classified government files. It's right in front of us, woven into the entertainment we consume every day. It's in movies, TV shows, music videos, and live performances, hidden in plain sight under the guise of artistic expression. The symbols, themes, and the recurring patterns are not random. They're deliberate, and when you start to notice them, you'll never see pop culture the same way again. Use it. Let's very gently break down some, and by some I mean very few, of the films, TV shows, and musicians that seem to reference monarch mind control. Some are overt, some are subtle, but they all seem to be broadcasting the same message. Here are some of the biggest and oldest offenders. The Manchurian Candidate, the original from 1962, and there's a remake from 2004. This is the mind control movie. It's about trauma-based programming used to create a political assassin who can be activated with a simple trigger. Then there's Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange from 1971. Trigger warning, there's some very graphic scenes of violence against women. But this movie is about behavioral conditioning, psychological torture, and extreme mind control techniques. Of course, there's The Shining, again, Stanley Kubrick. The movie is filled with subliminal messages about trauma, control, and hidden abuse. Guess what brand of typewriter Jack uses? Monarch. Then there's Conspiracy Theory from 1997. The entire plot revolves around a man who unknowingly underwent MKUltra style programming. He has this obsession with conspiracy theories that turns out to be more real than he imagined. Then there's Fight Club from 1999, a case study in dissociative identity disorder. Just like the Monarch victims, the protagonist has a hidden alter ego that operates without his knowledge. Then there's Eyes Wide Shut, again from 1999, Kubrick's final film, which seems to be an expose of elite secret societies and their ritual abuse. A lot of this movie was cut before release, and Kubrick mysteriously died days later. Think about it. Sucker Punch from 2011 is a movie that outright depicts young women undergoing trauma-based mind control, dissociation, and programming, all wrapped up in conveniently stylized action sequences. There's also Westworld. The entire show is about artificial intelligence, yes, but it's also about programmed identities, hidden commands, and slaves who don't know they're slaves. And of course, we can't forget Stranger Things, a show about children in a government experiment raised in isolation, subjected to psychic tests and trauma, and forced into dissociation. Doesn't it sound exactly like the real-life MKUltra testimonies? And it's not just Hollywood. The music industry is filled with the exact same themes, from music videos to album covers, stage performances to lyrics. There's a pattern, and it all points back to Monarch programming. Let's take a look at some of the biggest and again older names in the industry and the Monarch symbolism they've used. And this is just a quick list. There are hundreds of thousands more examples. We'll start with Sweet Dreams by Beyonce. There's imagery of dual personalities, mirrors symbolizing dissociation, and mind control themes. There's Rihanna's Disturbia, full of psychological torment imagery, eyes wide open in fear, black and white duality, representing ultra programming. I know this sounds crazy, just see where it goes. There's Wide Awake by Katy Perry, which shows a maze-like setting, handlers watching over her, and an escape from control, a direct metaphor for Monarch victims. Of course, good old Lady Gaga with Marry the Night, which starts in a psychiatric ward and includes extreme trauma-based imagery, and features her transformation into something new. Can't have this list without Britney. Hold It Against Me by Britney Spears shows split personalities, violent conditioning, and handlers in lab coats controlling her movements. What kind of consumer of culture would I be if I didn't mention Taylor Swift? Just watch the video for Look What You Made Me Do. There's a lot of Taylors, a lot of alters. Of course, our future president. There's Runaway by Kanye West, which is packed with mind control trauma and handlers manipulating the protagonist. The Weeknd. What can I say about The Weeknd? He's always using masks, puppetry, and themes of being controlled or watched, along with trauma-based storylines. And for good measure, I'll just mention the song MKUltra by Muse. The song literally describes the methods of the MKUltra program, including brainwashing and manipulations. It doesn't stop there. Monarch themes dominate award show performances too. Think about Miley Cyrus at the VMAs, when she suddenly transitioned from a Disney star to a hyper-adult industry pawn. Think about Madonna's occult-laden Super Bowl performance. Think about Kanye West's Jesus Walks performance, where handlers surround him as he screams about mind control. These aren't just artistic choices. They're signals. Now here's the question everyone asks. Why would pop culture repeatedly show these symbols and themes if they weren't based on some truth? Some believe it's a form of predictive programming, a way of desensitizing the public so they don't question it when they see it in real life. Others think it's a method of reinforcement, used to trigger actual Monarch victims who are still under control. Seeing certain images, words, or sounds in the media can act as a cue, reminding them of their programming, reinforcing the commands embedded in their subconscious. And then there's the most sinister explanation. It's a way for the elite to flaunt what they're doing, a form of hiding in plain sight. They put the truth right in front of us, dressed up as fiction, so that when someone tries to expose it, they sound crazy. Because after all, who would believe that pop stars are programmed slaves? That Hollywood actors have hidden identities activated by a phrase? That movies and music are more than just entertainment. They're tools of control. At this point, we've peeled back some of the layers of Monarch programming in Hollywood, music, and a little bit beyond. But the real question remains, why? Why would the entertainment industry be so deeply embedded in trauma-based mind control? And more importantly, what happens to the people who try to break free? The price of fame isn't just long hours and paparazzi. It's total submission. Many of the biggest celebrities, whether actors, musicians, or influencers, don't get to the top by accident. They are selected, groomed, conditioned, and, in some cases, allegedly programmed. And if they resist, they're destroyed. Consider this. Why do so many stars have public meltdowns, memory lapses, unexplained breakdowns, or sudden personality shifts? Monarch survivors claim that when a programmed individual begins to malfunction, when the programming starts to break, they are subjected to what is called a reconditioning. This can come in the form of rehab or psychiatric stays, often under mysterious circumstances, media scandals and cancellations, or public shaming designed to silence them, and of course, sudden, unexplained deaths, often labeled as overdoses, suicides, or medical emergencies. And if they try to speak out about what's really happening, they are silenced. Many stars have hinted, sometimes openly, sometimes cryptically, that they were being controlled. Some of them escaped, some disappeared, and others didn't make it out alive. Let's just look at a few names. Britney Spears, her infamous 2007 breakdown, where she shaved her head, reportedly screaming, "I don't want them touching me anymore." Many believe this was a programming break, a moment where she tried to reject her handlers. West has repeatedly spoken about mind control, calling out the industry, referencing handlers, and even stating on national television that they tried to put me on meds I didn't want to take. Amanda Bynes, another former child star who has spiraled into erratic behavior, tweeting cryptic messages about being under control before disappearing from Hollywood. Jim Carrey has openly mocked the entertainment industry's use of hidden symbolism and control, appearing on live television with hand gestures and coded language that many believe was him trying to warn the public. Lady Gaga has spoken cryptically about dissociation and has repeatedly used Monarch programming imagery in her performances. She has openly described alter personas as taking control of her body, referencing handlers multiple times. Miley Cyrus transitioned from Disney's Hannah Montana, a literal double life narrative, to hyper-scandalous performances with many moments resembling Monarch breakdowns and reintegration phases. Prince, before his sudden and mysterious death, gave multiple interviews calling out the industry's control mechanisms and referencing hidden agendas. And last but not least, Michael Jackson was arguably one of the most blatant victims of industry control. He frequently talked about being controlled, referred to industry elites as the system, and died under extremely suspicious circumstances. And those are just the ones who dared to say something. How many more are out there, silently obeying their programming, because they don't know what happens if they don't? Here's something to think about. Anytime a celebrity starts acting strangely, calling out hidden agendas, or behaving erratically, what does the media do? They call them crazy. They send them to rehab. They put them on meds. They say they're having a breakdown. It's the perfect cover. If someone is breaking free from their programming, the easiest way to discredit them is to label them unstable. After all, who's going to believe the crazy person talking about mind control? It's not just an accident. It's a deliberate way to silence them while keeping the rest of us entertained. Because the entertainment industry isn't really about art anymore. I don't know if it ever was. It's about control. At the top of all of this, the programming, the mind control, the manipulation, is a small elite group of people who benefit from it all. The ones who select the stars, the ones who fund the projects, the ones who decide who rises and who falls. They aren't the names you see on magazine covers. They stay in the shadows, pulling the strings, keeping the illusion alive, because they have someone to answer to as well. But we'll talk about that another time. If you think this is all just a conspiracy theory, well, you're doing great. That's exactly what they want you to believe. Tonight, instead of diving deep, we carefully began our descent into the dark rabbit hole that Project Monarch actually is. It's a complex issue, shrouded in controversy and mostly unanswered questions. But ask yourself, why do the same symbols appear again and again? Why do so many stars crumble under pressure? Why does Hollywood reward obedience and punish rebellion? The truth isn't just hidden, it's broadcasted right in front of us. The real question is, do you see it?